This podcast is brought to you by the following sponsors. Your San Diego County Toyota dealers. We've got what it takes. Fix Auto. Corky's Pest Control. And Lolita's Family of Restaurants.
Hey there, sports fans. Welcome to another week of Laxcast here in the offices of SFC Athletics. I love our backdrop here. It looks so official. And it feels official because we have the best lacrosse analyst in town, Coach Tom DeMeo. Coach, how you doing? Good
great
to see you, too. Another big week for you guys. We're going to get to that in our game balls. But first, let's make a little trip kind of around the county as we always do. What we're going to do this week, shout out some game balls and then just get straight into our game previews. We're not going to pick your brain about anything because we got some big games to talk about this coming week. So first off, game ball, round 2, Coronado beats La Jolla again. This one a little bit closer, but another big win for the Islanders.
Yeah, I mean, it was at Coronado, and it was again close. I think it was a 2-goal game at one point in the fourth quarter, and La Jolla seemed up to the challenge, and it went up and down, but ultimately Coronado pulled away in the end, which I think we expected when we looked at it last week. So
absolutely, it seems like that's going to develop into a nice little rivalry there, though, both on the guys and girls side. But the guys specifically feel like that gap has finally closed into we can at least look forward to this game being competitive.
Yeah, it's getting there. I mean, La Jolla had good goaltending, and so did Coronado, but La Jolla returned some kids next year. So, yeah, it's getting closer. The gap's closing.
Our next game ball goes out to Francis Parker beating Canyon Crest. They put up a huge offensive day. This Parker team a little bit unknown. A lot of these D2 programs still struggling to make a definitive name for themselves, but hey, big win for the Lancers.
Yeah, Coach Kidd's working hard on the fundamentals there, and I know he wants to develop that program to be more of a Division II powerhouse, and so that's a step for him.
And you know all about that grind of building something kind of from the ground up, and you know that you cling to every win that you can get along the way. Everything that you can turn into a positive, you do so.
Absolutely, and I actually had that conversation with Coach Kidd a couple months ago, and we shared some philosophies and how we got to where we got to. So I'll be happy to see him succeed there.
And then it ends with just a finger full of rings that maybe you'll bust out for us someday. Next one, Torrey Pines beating Poway in the rematch of last year's Open Division Finals. Are we seeing a preview of if this meets up again in the finals? It's going to go Torrey's way?
Yeah, I mean, you never know how they'll go, but I do know that Torrey changed up some things and used a zone approach to Poway, which they struggled with, and I'm sure that if they meet again, Coach Burke will be gaming against Coach Zizzy, and it will be interesting. But I think LCC's in that same mix too. So
that's true. I didn't mean to disrespect the other because there are going to be 8 teams included in the Open Division playoffs. Yeah. Didn't mean to disrespect there, but you just got to think with last year's final being so close as it was, to see more rematches like this, and both of those teams being neck and neck all season long.
Yeah, I mean, it was a really low-scoring game, which tells you that that can be frustrating for the team that only scored 3 goals, which is Poway. So I would think that if they do meet again, the coaches will be trying to come up with ways to score more goals, both of them.
It's crazy because you see these teams putting up these massive numbers on all these schools this year. Then when they meet together, you don't know what are we going to see. We're going to super. I feel like there's only 2 options: super low scoring, like it ended up being, or like a 25-22 game where just all concepts of defense were lost because of 2 overpowering offenses. Speaking of overpowering offense, game ball out to the Santa Fe Christian Eagles. The winning streak keeps on as you guys overpowered Bishops.
Yeah, we two over them this year, and we came out strong. Had a really good first quarter. I think we went up 4-0 at halftime. I think we're up a couple more than that, and went into the fourth quarter with a very comfortable 5 or 6 goal lead that got a little smaller towards the end. But we played really well and we executed, and the kids were excited. And we didn't play that well Tuesday, so I think the kids responded really well from my standpoint. So we're happy with it.
So no angry conditioning going on at practice day.
There will be.
Okay, they're still getting it regardless. Maybe that's why I saw them pushing you in here. Stay in there as long as you want. Talk. Over to the girls' side, game ball out to Scripps Ranch for beating Bishops. This Bishops team we saw when they sprinted out of the gate this year, they were scoring 18, 15, 19, really high-scoring games. Then they meet up with Sam Fish and Scripps Ranch, Sam Fish being their goalie there, and Scripps gets the best of them. What does that tell you about both of these teams?
Well, I mean, I think Scripps is coming on at the end of the year at the right time, and it is the time of year when you have goaltending, and whether it's face-offs, goaltending, and it comes down to possessions, and if you have someone back there that can lead the team, it's always going to be a benefit in close games.
It gives you a nice anchor to have something that you can walk into a game with, as this will be our guiding point. Scripps Ranch, last year's Division I champions, and you got to think that maybe they're lacking a little bit of that offensive firepower to run away with it, but when they have a goalie like that can shut big-time offenses down, you got to think that they're going to be able to throw their hat into the mix come playoff times. Next one, La Jolla getting the best of Cathedral Catholic in round 2. Cathedral handed La Jolla its first loss on the girls' side earlier this season. Now La Jolla gets the best of Cathedral. What does this say about the Vikings?
Well, I think it's a saying. It's what we've been saying about them all year. They're sort of right on that cusp of being in there with the top 2 teams.
Flirting with greatness a little.
Yeah, and it's they're definitely in that top 5, and I think they had a win over Coronado this week too,
Mm-hmm.
and they're winning the games they should win, and they just got to take the next step and the jump up.
Yeah, we kind of joked the first meeting of these two teams that it was the who's going to beat Torrey Pines in 2018 Bowl, and it seems that right where we said with that first game 3 weeks ago, these two teams are so neck and neck, it's really hard to decide. And now they've split the series with each other, and it just really bodes well, I think, for the girls' game. That at that top level, it's not 3 teams, everyone else. Right now it's Torrey Pines and everyone else, but there's a nice mix of parity.
Yeah, and that's, it was almost like how we looked at things with Bishops, is if we split, it shows some parity there, but when you sweep, you feel...
You always a little bit of this at the end.
And so I'm sure that La Jolla was happy to get the split there, whereas Cathedral would have liked the sweep. But so that's great. That is great. The parity's good for the girls' game.
Let's go down to the South Bay for our last shout-out. Hilltop taking one from Eastlake. Eastlake, a D2 finalist last year. They've moved up now, and Eastlake beat Hilltop in overtime. The first one, Hilltop comes back to get them, so always nice getting a little bit of revenge there. Congratulations to the Lancers. All right, Coach, let's move now, though, to the games that are yet to be played this week, because, oh my goodness. Every week it keeps getting bigger and bigger. It's like somehow Michael Bay keeps writing another sequel to last week's games with more explosions and more drama. Let's start on the guys' side. Coronado Cathedral. Last time we saw this game, if I'm correct, Cathedral had 87 shots on goal, something like that.
I think they shared 87 shots, which is a lot, and it was like 16-15, and it was down in Coronado, and
so now they're coming up to Cathedral.
Coming up to Cathedral.
Give me a little bit of thoughts on this game.
Well, I don't think you're going to see as many shots. I think they'll be a little bit closer, tight to the vest. I think both teams defensively have improved, but in the end, this is a huge game from the standpoint of who's in that 4 and 5 seed, and that they get to play each other rather than go out and play a Poway LCC. So it's a huge game, and then the 4 seed gets to play at home, whether it's San Marcos, us, or Cathedral. Coronado would like that team would come to them, which would, certainly rather than have to go and play Cathedral, San Marcos, or us on the road.
You bring up kind of an interesting subset is for as big as this game means to Cathedral wanting to get their win and Coronado wanting to get their win, it has so much impact on everybody else because we're at the point now where big teams are playing big teams, and it's going to have such a trickle down. If Coronado ends up just absolutely torching Cathedral by 15, Cathedral's going to start dropping 2 or 3 spots. 2 teams move up. There's such a home field. This is one of those games that everyone's going to be kind of watching closely.
Yeah, this is. I mean, there are some big ones with the guys jockeying at the top, but this is one. This has more of effect on people's playoff hopes and who they play than any other game that we're talking about.
Well, I won't ask you for your opinion on who you want to win or lose in relation to SFC. We'll just keep moving to another top game. Poway's going to be playing against Westview. Westview this season sprinted on to the scene, really hot at the beginning of the year. They kind of fell back down to the earth, but they're still a really talented team. How do they match up against a very solidified good team in Poway?
Well, I think it's going to be a struggle. Westfield, both teams at Poway and Westfield have great goaltending. Westfield had a great game last week. I think Carlsbad, I think they won 11-5. It was tied in the fourth quarter. So I think they're closing the gap a little bit. I think they're playing a little better than certainly when I saw them against Coronado. But Poway's a big challenge. They're coming off a loss, they'll be hungry, and that will be an interesting one, again, to how the standings go. Poway wins by a bunch, and Westview most certainly will be playing in the Division I bracket rather than open. So, again, has a lot of standings for people's, meaning to people's seasons right now.
Well, and then let's close it out. This is just, to those of you out there in TV land, I will admit, I was a little uninitiated to lacrosse when I was in high school. I didn't really know quite how much fun it was. I go off to college, I gained some perspective on life, and now I have come back to really appreciate how big this game has become here in San Diego. And the pinnacle of it is the rivalry between Torrey Pines and LCC. And that is going down this Friday at Torrey Pines. Coach, give me a little bit of a vibe of how big this game is going to be on and off the field, and B, what are your thoughts?
Well, it's certainly the game of the season. I mean, looking at it, LCC beat Poway, which makes the LCC Torrey game probably the biggest game of the season. But I will say that, and not that the coaches, it's a rivalry, they're playing to win. This is one that they're going to feel each other out, almost like the first drive of like a football,
a classic boxing match. You're going to toss a couple jabs, see each other's punching power.
Yeah, and I think the end game is these are two teams that have really good chances and hopes of winning CIF. So I think this game there'll be some feeling out what each team does, and ultimately it's like I said about Poway and Torrey. These guys are bound to meet each other again, if not LCC and Torrey, and I think or Poway and LCC. It's just the way that the season's going. But Torrey's looking really strong, and
maybe a little slow in the first half, and then all of a sudden the fourth quarter, everyone's just throwing haymakers everywhere, and we're seeing
I think so. I think it'll be
stick middies shooting from half field.
It's going to be a low-scoring game. I think they're going to be fight. They're going to fight at the X, and they both have good goaltending. And I'm sure that Coach Cooper's talking to Coach Burke from Poway and coming up with ways to beat Torrey. So I think it's going to be it's going to be a chess match.
Low-key, everyone's kind of ganging up to find a way to beat Torrey because they don't lose much here in San Diego.
It's the same on the girls' side too, right?
No, they don't lose ever.
Yeah, but that said, you are looking at Torrey hasn't won in a bunch of years, so I'm sure Poway still wants to defend their back-to-back, but Torrey's looking like the strongest team this year.
Absolutely. And just a side note, San Diego Prep Insider will be there this Friday at Torrey Pines for our game day segment, so come on out, fans. Let's switch over to the girls' side and just talk about the exact same matchup. Torrey, LCC on the girls' side. This one, maybe a little more firepower than the guys' side. Both of these offenses are very, very fast-paced, and the way that the girls' game works with playing halves instead of quarters, not as much of a time to feel each other out momentum-wise. So I'm saying this one is going to just be 5-5 2 minutes into the game. The heads are going to be spinning.
Yeah, it's completely possible, and I think that again, like we talked about, Torrey's a team to beat, but I think LCC, this is a huge rivalry. In rivalry games, you never know what's going to happen. You kind of
throw it all out the window and go, anything could happen today.
Yep. Yeah, you can get, it just come out one team going 5-0 and come back, and so I think it'd be a really high scoring game on the girls' side.
And with these games being played at Torrey Pines, there's a lot to be said about it. This is one of the few environments where the fans actually do get involved. Like, this rivalry brings people out, and you really do get that energy to feed off of oh wow, we scored a couple. We're up right now. We're rolling. We got the crowd going. It's really fun. If you are just a generally new fan to the game of lacrosse, these are two games that, you should check out every one of these games because it's a great sport. But these would be two really good starter games for people to go check out just because of how welcoming of an environment it is.
There's going to be a lot of energy in those games. And that's, at this time of year. And if it's not the playoffs, this is about as much energy as you're going to get in games.
Exactly.
So, it'll be great.
Well, and then our last game to talk about on the girls' side, Coronado, Rancho Bernardo. We haven't talked a whole lot about Rancho Bernardo this year on the girls' side, but they are somewhere in that D1 playoff mix. How are they going to fare against Coronado?
Yeah, I think it's two teams kind of in similar places, and I think I think it's like we talked about with a lot of these teams. They all aspire to be those top teams, but they're just not there right now. But I think it's one of those games. I think it's gonna be a good game. I think it's gonna be a lot like maybe the Scripps game where it's tight for a while and Coronado pulls away in the end. But I think ultimately they're in the same boat as a lot of these other teams.
Well, in this one, maybe not in the open division realm of it, but in the D1 realm, things can get just as murky playoff-wise, and one win can sway things so dramatically to who's getting home field and all that. So another interesting game to check out. Coach, we'll let you get on to practice. Well, what do you got going on here?
This is my my red bandana, Wells Crowther 9/11 Memorial.
Very nice.
Bracelets.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Touching tribute. We'll end on that wonderful note. And sports fans, we will see you next week.